Hi guys, and welcome to FORGE WRIGHT. Thanks for dropping in. If you haven't seen the channel before, my name's Andy. The channel's based around learning to become a blacksmith, starting as an absolute beginner. I cover setting up the forge, making the tools required to start smithing, learning basic techniques, and developing your skills. I also make metal fabrication videos, which can be very helpful when trying to build some of the tools and equipment that you'll need to use in the workshop. So, let's roll the intro and get started on today's video.
Rightio, this one's for you, Len. I hope there's enough light for you to be able to see what's going on here. I know you've just got your brand new welder and you were a bit worried about loading it all up with wire and everything, so I'm going to give a bit of a demo of what you're looking at. So here's my gun with the end of the wire sticking out here. It's about 10 mil, which is ideal for catching an arc. And I'm just going to rotate this spool here, which is the 4.5 kilo spool of 0.9 millimeter wire. And as I rotate the spool, you should be able to see the end of the wire disappear into the gun, because I'm going to pull the wire back through. I'll do it initially without disconnecting any of this, which is the feeder mechanism, but I shall disconnect the feeder mechanism to pull the rest of the wire through and re-show you how it is fed in the first place. Okay, so you should be able to see this wire pull back out. There she goes. That's pulling out of the gun. Of course, when you've got the machine turned on and you pull your trigger here, that does the opposite. This feeds the wire in and pushes it out of the gun. So what I'll do now is I'll put the gun back down over here. I'll disconnect the tension on this, so that's just, I gave it 6 clicks, pop that down, that lifts that up, it takes the pressure off this wheel and this wheel. So the feeder mechanism is these two wheels coming together. This wheel rotates and the pressure from this wheel grips onto the wire and feeds it through the tube to the gun. So I've now disconnected that. Now this should rotate a lot easier, and that's pulling the wire back out of the, I've got to hang on to it. When you're loading these things up, you can see the wire here coming through. You have to be very careful when you release your wire to make sure that you hang on to the end of it. Otherwise it'll just unravel itself and you'll end up with meters and meters of mess before you've managed to get it into your spool feeder system. So as I'm freeing this bit back up again, and I'll just release the tension on that. I think you can see what I'm doing there. Release the tension on that so this turns easier. And as I'm winding it back on, I'm keeping a bit of tension on here so that my wire keeps nice and tight on the spool. And as I get closer to the end, it's about 2 meters, 2.5 meters of wire to roll in, so it'll be a little while. There it is. You see that? You just see the wire cable here came out of the little blue nozzle there. That means I've got the wire all the way out, and I'll get that out of the way. And now as I pull this back out, I've got a big, there it is, very slowly. See, there it comes. So that's the end of my wire right there. Now, you can imagine I'm loading this up for the first time. You undo this all the way, take that off, take this off. This whole spool mechanism here, this little insert, removes out of here. There's a bit of blowout. So you put your spool wire on, just redoing the whole thing again, spool wire on there. This has got a 2 flat sides on the shaft there, so when you put it on, it only goes on one way, so it won't rotate. So you put that on there, you put your spring back on, and then you thread your nut back on, and you put that on until it tensions up to a point where you can easily rotate it to get your wire in. Now the trick is to not let go of anything while you're doing this. Pull it back enough to get it into that little nozzle there, and then gently, trying not to bend your wire, feed it through, and soon you will see it come out of here onto here. Now, another thing you have to do at some stage is this, I won't let it go, this here has a screw mechanism on this little black spool here. This comes out, and I won't take it all the way out, but when you get it all the way out, that is, oh, I will take it all the way out. There you go. It's just a little thread. Take it out like that, and this comes off like so, and you've got two little grooves in this wheel. This groove on this side is the larger wire groove, so that will take your 8 and 9 mil welding wire. The thinner groove here is for your 6 mil welding wire. Like I said to you previously in another message we had, you would use this if you were doing work on thin panels, like car body work. You'd go down to your 6 mil wire, but you'll be using probably 9 mil. That is 0.6 mil wire. This is 0.9 mil wire. So you'll be using that side. So you've got to make sure whatever side you're using is on the inside. There's a little spline keyway there, so make sure when you put it on, you rotate it so you won't go on like that. Rotate it, get the spline on, it comes to there. So now back to this, you keep feeding this through, making sure you've got no loss of tension. Now here we go, here's my wire, so I'll bring it in and then just direct it so that it goes inside the little blue nozzle there, which it's now done. You can then push it in a little bit so you know it's in there and it's moving freely. It also helps when you're doing this to make sure that your gun lead, the wire is reasonably straight. You don't want to have it all twisted up because it's harder for the wire to come through. So once you've done that and you've got it through maybe, you know, a foot or so, pop that over, pop that up. I took it off 6 turns, 6 clicks. So now that should have a good grip on there. So that won't come back out again now unless I force it to. See, I can push that in there and I can just tighten that up there. Now knowing that that's got plenty of free movement to rotate here, the wire can come off it nice and easily. I forgot to put this back on, so I don't want to forget to do that, otherwise my feeder roller will come out. So I'll put that back in, tighten that back up, because I've got it in for the 0.9 mil wire. Tighten that up, and we're good to go at this section here. So now what I'll do is I'll turn it on. I'll just pause here. So a bit of a rundown on what we've got here. Minimum, maximum, 1 and 2, on, off, and wire feed speed. Here we've got MIG, mag, all very straightforward, nothing else you need to know. So just for the sake of finishing off the wire feed, setting up your wire and getting it into your gun. So this is your wire feed control here. To get your wire feeding in the first place, I've got the camera over here, so what I'll do is I'll turn her on. We have action. You can turn your wire feed down in the first place just to make sure you've got there's nothing dramatic going to happen before you have it running flat out. And if you'll look over here in this camera here now, you'll see the wire spool will start to turn and feed wire through here, and eventually it will come out this gun. Now I've got the wire feed turned right down here onto 2, just to have it to demonstrate slowly for you. Here we go. I'll pull the trigger on the gun. Now that's a bit tight. That didn't turn, although I've got it turned right down. I'll just loosen that off 2 turns. Tighten it down, you don't hear the clicks, but when you undo it, you hear click, click. I undid it 6 clicks to pull it open. Just wound it up before. That was a little bit tight, a little bit clunky. So, and you'll mark your wire if you do it too tight. So I'll try that again. That's moving all right. You can now see the mechanism moves when I pull the trigger. Nothing's going to come out because we've got the wire speed set way down on 2. Now I'll come over here and I'll turn the wire speed right up, flat out. Now we'll come back here and pull the gun. Sorry for bumping the camera. You can see the speed that comes out now. So we've got it. Now this is just, generally you have it turned right up here just to load up your wire. Because it's, you know, like I say, 2.5 meters, 3 meters of lead that it's got to go through before it comes out of your gun. So yeah. Whoop, we've got a freeze up. I think I know what might be happening here. Okay, I've got an old MIG tip in here. The end of this gun's pretty well stuffed. I have to get a new one soon, but I've got an old MIG tip in here. So I had forgotten to mention that what you should do is loosen off your tip. And you can just grab that like that to do so. And then unwind it. There we go. There's the wire at the end of the tip. Now all that was doing was, because there's a bit of crud left on the end of here, and there's probably a bit of crud on the inside of the tip. Really, you'll be doing this with a brand new tip, so it shouldn't matter. But what you should do is do this without your actual contact tip in, and then when you pull, you can see how quickly that's coming out. So back over to here, we'll turn the wire back down to 5, give it another hit. That's better. It's more of a normal speed to be pushing it through. So then, once you've got your wire through, whoops, sorry again, you can get this in. Fair bit of dust and stuff came out of there when I did that. So you've got your wire through now, you can pull that. Once you get that on, you can work your way down. I really should have a new tip in here. In fact, I'm going to pause here. 0.8 mil. I gave you a bum steer before, Len. I'm using what looks like 0.8 mil. Yes, I am. See, 0.8. So we've got contact tip, 0.8. So I apologise if you've already gone out and bought it, mate. I'll send you a message to make sure you get the 0.8s, not the 0.9s. You can use 0.9, but I use the 0.8, and I have 0.8 wire. So I'll just grab a nice new tip, nice and shiny, pull that one off, get rid of it because they're a consumable, and then when I put that on there, that slides up and down nice and easily, except it gets a bit stuck here, but that's where I've been mucking with the wire, a little bit of a kink in it. So I'll put that on there, screw the new tip in, just give it a, you really only need to go finger tight, but just make sure it is in there properly before you do anything else. And then of course what you do is you cut it off to get rid of that kink, and there you go, there's a brand new tip on your gun, all ready to go. Okay, a bit of a rundown here, Len, on what we've got here. So it's pretty well, depends on what sort of welding you're doing. First of all, if you're doing MIG welding with the gasless wire, which is what through conversations we've had, you will be using, which is what I use. Yes, it's a little bit messier, you get a little bit more spatter, the wire is more expensive, but you don't need to worry about having gas. and the gas is actually very expensive. Comes in small bottles unless you've got a lot of money and you want to invest in buying a bottle and so on and so forth. I find it more economical and easier to just use the gasless wire, so flux core wire, as they say. So therefore, you have your plugs. Get rid of that. What you have is you have your main gun will be already set up and coming out of that hole there, because that hole is where your feed wire comes in. You can't change that, so ignore that lead there. The only two options you've got for this machine is in having your earth wire plugged into here, which is negative positive. The one thing you may have on your machine that I have, some Chinese person put a negative positive on there and a negative positive on there, but it does give you a symbol that shows you what sort of welding you're doing. So this clearly here is a symbol of a MIG tip with wire coming out of it. Plug your lead into there. This symbol here is a arc welder with a stick rod coming out of it. If you're going to do arc welding, disconnect your plug from here and plug it into this socket. That's all you need to know about your polarity, mate. Here for arc welding, here for MIG welding. You've got an arc welder, use your arc welder for arc welding, use this for MIG welding. You never have to change it. So that's very straightforward. Okay, you got your on, off switch. That's pretty simple. Now you've got your minimum. If you were going to be welding 3mm steel, you might have it on minimum 1 to start off on a test piece, see what sort of an arc you get and penetration you get. If that's not enough, flick it on to minimum 2. That should be enough for your 3-4mm wire. Plenty. You should be able to do 3, 4, maybe even 5mm wire down there, or 4mm wire. If you go to, wire, steel, if you move up to 5, 6 mil steel that you're welding, you want a bit more penetration, so stick her onto 2. If you're welding something that's between, say, 6 and 8 mil, you would click it to maximum and then that back to 1. So it's just a 4-stage. Minimum 1. Next stage up is minimum 2. Next stage up is maximum 1. Next stage up is maximum 2. Now, for example, I rarely would put it, I really don't need to put it up onto maximum 2. Usually my maximum is maximum 1. That will do 10, 12, 14 millimeter thick plate, that sort of thing. If you're going to be welding inch plate, like when I was welding up my anvil, you may want to have it up there. But if you're only using 8mm wire, 0.8mm wire, you're probably going to not need it to be up here anyway. So my standard welding position is maximum 1, because I'm generally welding 8, 10, 12mm thick steel. Great setting for that. Then all you've got to do is set your wire speed. And of course, if you're welding something thin and you're down on minimum 1, you're not going to be wanting heaps of wire to be coming out, because you're just going to be globbing it on there. You need to have your metal heat up so that the wire that comes out can fuse into your parent material. Put it on too fast, it's just going to build up on top. Looks like you've got a weld, you've got no penetration. So because you're waiting for that steel to heat up slowly, the thin little steel, you may only need to have your wire speed down low. You probably won't be welding really, really thin stuff. So, maybe 4. You move up to there, you may want to turn it up to 5. When I'm on there, I generally have mine round about 6. and sometimes I'll move it up just a little bit more, sometimes I'll move it down a little bit more. Depends on what sort of earth you're getting on the material you're using. But yeah, 6 there is generally good, sometimes 6.5. If I was to go up there like doing my anvil, I may have it up on 7.5, 8, but yeah, generally don't go over 7, and play with it from there. You'll know if you're getting too much wire coming out because it'll just glob on top. And if you don't have enough wire, what will happen is you keep losing your arc because the wire can't come out quick enough. You've got your amperage up. It's burning up way quicker than it can get to your material. So you're going to have to, you're better off to start low, have it do that, do it on your test material, and then turn it up a little bit. Is it coming out fast enough to keep up with the amperage and the heat that's burning it? No, it's not. Turn it up a little bit more. Yes, got it. Or just a fraction more. Yep, got it. Remember those settings, and generally they'll work for you all the time. And the material I use, 5.5, 6.5, maximum 1, I'm good to go. I'm going to do some welding now on another project that I'm doing that I'll be posting, and it's heavy gauge material, so I'm going to have it on maximum 1, and I'll have it on 6, and then I'll adjust it from there on. Really hope that helped, mate. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.